not
No,
really.
landscape was open space was a liability.
Yeah.
People were trying to fill it up, chain it off, fence it out. Absolutely, it was a total liability. And that's, I remember thinking, maybe I started down the wrong path. So I was actually going to go out to Colorado. So people said to me, well, why don't you go move back to Colorado? And I remember thinking to myself, Colorado doesn't need me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to screw it up. But New York needs me.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I mean, aside from, other personal reasons and whatnot, I really felt like New York could use improvement and maybe I could help. When you start out, as I did, I just had a kid and hung out my shingle. It was as unthoughtful as that. And so I did, people's backyards and a few terraces and stupid things. And then I started to get some public work. And I guess it was then that I realized that you really could make a difference. And I think that that's one of the reasons I've stayed so committed to public work, is I never really felt that I was doing much if I just did somebody's private residence. And you don't do many private residences, do you?
I do more than I should.
I've kind of given up.
You don't do any?
Well, I don't have the patience for the clients anymore, to be perfectly blunt. But it also is kind of philosophical that I really believe in social good. And so if I have a choice, I would prefer to do public work. If I have a really great client, yes, or a great site. I got to have like 3 good things though: client, site, intention.
Well, and
A fee doesn't hurt either. But.
and they had to want to hire you
Right.
for the residential thing with those caveats to work. It's not like work you want to solicit.
Right.
Like somebody has to love Signe and say, oh gosh, I wish you would work on this.
But it's just, it takes, for me, it still takes more time than away from all the other things I'd rather be doing. And it's just a choice. I think that there's some really great landscape architects out there who do beautiful private residences. I don't know, I would be bereft if, Beatrix Farrand hadn't done what she had done that I could have learned from. So it's not that I don't believe in it, it's just that I personally don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's all. Public work, I guess I got my first.
What was your big break?
What was my big break?
Yeah, because I think we all know that in people that have grown firms from scratch, which I certainly did too. Almost the same story as you.
I guess there were 2, and I think they were actually close to being simultaneous. One was a project in the South Bronx where this gentleman who'd been a police officer was wounded and had retired and started a boxing club. Because he felt that this was something he could do to sort of channel the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right down the hill from the Fort Apache precinct. Absolutely bombed out South Bronx, the classic imagery that you see. And he said, we want a community garden. We've gotten a state grant. And I don't know how the hell they got my name. So I went up there, and I remember when he shook my hand, it was just like it got swallowed in his huge hand. And we went out into the, I thought I was going to have a real interview, so I wore my nice little pumps and, it was all good. And then he said, well, let's go outside. And I go, okay. And then he bent over to pick up a weed. And when he bent over, his shirt pulled up, and in the back was a pistol. I said, do you always weed with a pistol? And he said, honey, a lot of people that I put in jail are now out, and yes, it's a wise thing to do. And at the end of that interview, just watching this gigantic cop with a pistol in his back pocket, weeding this rubble-strewn lot, and he said, we can make a garden here as part of the boxing club. I thought to myself, yes, we can. That's a great
story.
It was a very small project, but I think it really got me going. And then the next one was a streetscape on the Lower East Side. And the idea was an economic development-based revitalization project. And again, I walked out on that street it was from Delancey to Houston, had the highest drug arrest rate of any place in the city. I walk out on the street, I had my little camera, not so little actually, and a policeman said to me, and I was kind of young, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, we've gotten the job to make this better." And he said, "I really wouldn't walk this street unless you have a police escort." I said, No, I'll get to know the people and it'll be fine." And it was totally fine. And it was one of those things where I not only saw a physical reality that was so blighted, but I was actually dealing with mentalities. Like in this one police officer in the Lower East Side, but the other police officer in the South Bronx. And today Clinton Street is sort of the Smith Street of the Lower East Side. It is one phenomenal restaurant after another.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have thought a lot though that the design was a very small part of the revitalization. I mean, they went on a major drug bust to clean up the street. They went after absentee landlords to try to improve the storefront. So the lesson I learned from that is that design alone is not going to change those deeply embedded, social and economic problems. But I guess it's because those things came together for me that I realized, the fact that I do have a political science degree isn't useless,
Mm-hmm.
and that I can, weave these other things together into a philosophy of design. One thing I did not go to school for was
Business management.
business management. Honestly, I thought that once my child was in school, I would go back and work for somebody that I respected, and if I was a good employee, I maybe one day would become a partner, and I would go that way. But somehow or another, that didn't. Well, I guess I started getting more and more work, and I realized that I could actually make a go of it, and I could, be a mom, and I could teach, and I could, go away for the summer for a couple weeks, and why did I really want to go work for somebody? And so that was, I just never went back, but nor did I ever think through what I was doing. It just, the firm got a little bigger, and then a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, and
you and Kim got together and...
Well, Kim was my employee. She was my first employee, my first full-time employee, and she will tell you a story that I was actually interviewing her for a teaching position at Pratt, where I teach, and they had an opening for a faculty member, and so I was interviewing her. But so I still do live in that same loft without a buzzer in Tribeca, and so we didn't have cell phones, so she threw a penny at the window, so I went down to get her, and at that moment I had gotten a delivery of a rug, and I said to her, "Could you just get the other end of this and we'll just take it upstairs?" Meanwhile, she had her pumps on, and I had my shorts on, and so she was fairly hot and sweaty when she got to the top of the stairs with that big rug, and I loved her, and so...
Pretty good test of a partner right there.
Yeah. So I
Carry a rug
hired
with
her for
pumps on.
teaching, and I hired her as an employee, and so we worked together for, 5 or 7 years, 10-ish, and then she went and decided that she was going to try her hand at planning, because maybe there were, bigger ideas out there, because, our firm was still pretty small and pretty small projects. And then her firm ended up hiring my firm to build their plan. And we would go to these community board meetings every 3 weeks or so, and we would carpool, and we just said, we miss each other. And I said, I don't want to run this business alone. And she said, I don't want to do planning anymore. And so,
Cool.
presto.